The man just ate a wild bug, and the next second he got a stomachache. Then he smelled a foul stench. It turned out a dinosaur had pooped a pile bigger than him, so he had to go hunt wild boars. He seized the moment and threw his spear with all his strength. Unexpectedly, the next moment, Fong took the lead and bit the wild boar in one bite. Spear was unwilling, but he also felt he was not as skilled as Fong. He decided to look for another target, but unexpectedly, Fong followed him too. Spear grabbed the mud on the ground and painted it on his face as camouflage. Spear and Fong sniffed hard, and they locked onto the prey's location at the same time. Fong rushed forward recklessly, and the wild boar hurried to run away. Spear also accelerated to chase with all his strength. This aroused Fong's competitive spirit. How could Spear possibly outrun a dinosaur in speed? Right after that, he jumped into the air, stuck the spear in his hand into the tree trunk, and quickly jumped onto the tree himself. Spear took down the spear and waited quietly for the prey to come. Suddenly, he noticed movement. The wild boar appeared. Spear threw the spear and killed the boar with one hit. He quickly went down the tree to check his trophy, but unexpectedly, Fong was already ready to eat it. Spear was really angry this time. This guy didn't understand the rules at all. No matter whose prey it was, she wanted to eat it. So Spear planned to pick some wild fruits to eat. He climbed the tree while keeping an eye out, making sure Fong didn't follow. Fresh wild fruits were right in front of him, but just as he was about to get them, the whole tree started shaking. It was Fong ramming the tree again. With her fierce ramming, Spear fell down together with the fruits. Fong even ate the wild fruits as a dessert. Spear couldn't stand it anymore. He pushed Fong hard. Fong felt confused, so she roared at Spear a few times. Spear picked up his spear to confront her, but Fong didn't understand why he was angry at all. In the end, Spear silently put away his spear and gave up on attacking. At night, they rested in a cave, but Fong's snoring was too loud. Spear couldn't fall asleep at all. He decided to settle old and new scores together, grabbed a stone, and woke Fong up by hitting her, but Fong just looked around, and as soon as she fell asleep again, the snoring started once more. This made Spear completely desperate. The next day, they continued on their way. They saw a sick deer, and Fong rushed out and bit it to death immediately. Spear was completely enraged. He picked up his spear and was about to stab Fong. Fong angrily put down the sick deer. Then Spear stepped directly on the sick deer. Seeing this, Fong knocked him flying. She finally understood the feeling of having food stolen. The war between the man and the dinosaur was bound to break out. The dinosaur bit off the wild man's spear in one bite. He picked up two broken pieces of wood, assumed a fighting stance, and charged straight at Fong. Blows from the wooden sticks rained down on her continuously. At this moment, Fong also got angry. This wild man was actually fighting seriously. She rammed Spear to the ground with her head in one go, but he still refused to admit defeat. Got up and fought again. Then another round of fighting ensued. Spear jumped into the air, but unexpectedly, Fong swallowed him whole in one bite. However, she didn't really want to eat him. Spear was thrown out. Just then, the sound of a snake flicking its tongue came from behind. They were stunned by the scene in front of them. Countless snakes piled up like a mountain. Now they didn't even dare to breathe, silently retreating backward. They ran all the way to escape danger, but a whistling sound came from behind. It turned out that the heavy rain had triggered a flash flood. The flood, mixed with swarms of snakes, surged toward them. The two tried their best to run faster, but were still engulfed by the flood. Countless snakes attacked them in the water, yet they still seemed to hold grudges against each other. Spear couldn't hold his breath any longer, quickly swimming to the surface to gasp for air, but a giant python approached him. Spear hurriedly hid. Fong launched a sneak attack from behind. Seeing her tangled in a fight with the giant python, Spear wanted to help, but he could barely hold his breath. He quickly popped up to the surface to breathe. He found that there was actually a waterfall ahead. Falling down would mean certain death, so he quickly dived into the water to find Fong. At this time, the water had been dyed red with blood. The giant snake's head drifted past him. Fong had successfully killed the giant snake. She also surfaced and saw the waterfall, quickly turning around to dive underwater again. Seeing Spear holding onto the giant snake's body, she immediately understood his intention, biting onto the other end in one bite. They got into position, using the giant snake's corpse to cling to the rocks. Even though Fong weighed several times more than Spear, Spear still held tightly onto the giant snake. They persisted like this for a long time. The snake's body began to slip slowly, and both of them fell off the cliff. Fong was lucky enough to fall into the water, but Spear was not so fortunate. He suffered continuous impacts and passed out. Fong found the dying Spear, quickly fishing him out onto the shore. Looking at the unconscious Spear, Fong turned around and left silently. When Spear woke up, he touched his injured head, then looked at the waterfall, realizing that Fong had saved him. At that moment, Fong also appeared. She had gone to find Spear's spear. Spear looked at the spear, then at Fong. From then on, they built up trust between them, and kept throwing stones at the mammoth's eyes. When he was about to deliver the final blow, looking at the mammoth's begging eyes, he couldn't bear to do it after all. Watching the mammoth still struggling on the verge of death, Spear finally chose to strike. In this primitive era where the strong prey on the weak, being kind to others is being cruel to oneself. Although they had food, Spear didn't feel the slightest joy. He stroked the mammoth with sympathy, as if expressing his apology. Afterwards, they began to share the prey. Spear tore off a piece of fur and draped it over himself, to resist the wind and snow. Fong beside him nudged him, signaling him to eat quickly. Spear tore off another piece of fur, and draped it over Fong. Fong also bit off a piece of meat and threw it to Spear. After the two had their fill, Spear made a simple sled with the ivory, and planned to pack the remaining meat to take away. Now they had to decide who would be the laborer. Fong turned around and left directly. Spear sighed. This family really couldn't do without him. A blizzard started again in the sky. Spear dragged the sled forward with difficulty, while Fong was responsible for leading the way ahead. But in the blink of an eye, nearby, they got separated again. Fong called out with a roar, and fortunately, Spear slowly caught up. He really couldn't hold on anymore, put down the ivory and collapsed to the ground. The weather was extremely cold. Fang sat down surrounding Spear, helping him block the wind and snow. Don't underestimate the eyesight of primitive people. Spear found a cave ahead, so they walked towards the cave. Meanwhile, beside the mammoth's corpse, a pack of wild wolves was feasting. Suddenly they became alert. Then they immediately left without looking back. It was the mammoth's companions who had arrived. They surrounded it in a circle. The elephant chief let out a whimper, then stroked the companion's corpse with its trunk. At this moment, he found that the companion's ivory was gone. Looking at the footprints and traces on the ground, the chief understood everything. Inside the cave, Fong was eating meat greedily, while Spear sat silently facing the wall. Because of the mammoth, he had been feeling uneasy. He used branches to draw the process of besieging the mammoth with Fong today. Although Spear was a primitive man, his inner emotions were very gentle. Suddenly, the cave trembled violently, and rocks kept falling from the ceiling. At the moment the cave collapsed, they successfully escaped. The arrivals were the enraged elephant herd. This wild man only hunted an elephant, but was unexpectedly retaliated by the elephant herd at night. The elephant leader looked at them with contempt. Spear and Fong quickly assumed a fighting stance. When at a disadvantage, they must never lose their momentum. The elephant leader stared at them, raised its forelegs as thick as stone pillars, and stamped fiercely down at them. The tiny humans could only dodge under the elephant herd. A moment of carelessness would turn them into meat paste. At this time, Fong was already surrounded by other mammoths. Ignoring his own safety, Spear bravely rushed out to save Fong, but the giant mammoth raised its forelegs again, blocking Spear's rescue. Spear quickly jumped to the other side to dodge, while another mammoth charged at him with its huge tusks. Spear tried to dodge again, but the number of elephants was astonishing. Spear was knocked down again and again, but he still seized the opportunity to retrieve his spear, wanting to save Fong, who was about to be crushed. Spear swung the spear with all his strength, stabbing fiercely into the mammoth's body, but was thrown away by the elephant's trunk. He climbed onto the leader's back, and refused to let go no matter how the leader shook. Suddenly, the leader stepped on gravel, lost his balance and was about to fall. Spear was used as a meat pad. His life or death hung in the balance. On the other side, Fong fought more and more bravely, constantly biting and resisting. After successfully taking down a mammoth, she wanted to rush over to save Spear, but the elephant leader charged over, ignoring the damage from the sharp claws, and cooperated with another mammoth to sandwich Fong like an Oreo. Fong cried out in pain, and she could no longer resist at this moment. At this critical juncture, the leader suddenly sensed something. He let go of Fong, and looked in Spear's direction. The tenacious Spear stood up from the pile of stones. All the mammoths charged at him at the same time. Spear picked up the ivory on the ground and roared, but unexpectedly, the elephant herd stopped in their tracks instantly, taking the initiative to make way for the leader. The leader slowly walked up to Spear, staring at him coldly. Spear closed his eyes and waved the ivory vigorously, stopping only when he could no longer swing it. Looking at the leader, he seemed to understand something. He held up the ivory with both hands and returned it to the leader. The leader rolled up the ivory with his trunk, turned around and led the elephant herd away. They came to a canyon, where there were mammoth bones everywhere. It was also their cemetery. The leader placed his companion's ivory down, and then all the elephants closed their eyes, shaking their bodies regularly. Finally, they all stroked their companion's ivory with their trunks. Falling leaves returned to their roots. All things have spirituality. In this wild man stood a pack of velociraptors. One of the velociraptors pounced at him, but it was instantly killed with a single shot. The velociraptors launched successive attacks, but none could match the powerful dinosaur rider. The strength of the prehistoric #1 dinosaur rider should not be underestimated. They fled while launching counterattacks. Spear rode Fong toward the bushes. Unexpectedly, the bushes were the velociraptors' territory. As soon as they passed through the bushes, the velociraptors had already been waiting outside for a long time. They were completely surrounded, watching the velociraptors close in step by step. In this battle, how could they escape unscathed? Just then, the sun set. The velociraptors seemed to remember something. They immediately ignored Spear and Fong, instinctively started to retreat, as if fearing some terrifying natural enemy. Spear and Fong stood there dumbfounded. The rising blood moon looked like an ominous omen. Spear and his companion glanced at the bushes behind them, had to bite the bullet and charge forward. The man and the dragon walked through the mist. Every step had to be extremely careful. Suddenly, Spear saw a skull stone steel. Seeing such an evil thing, it foreshadowed that this place was not suitable for staying long. Spear and Fong continued forward. There were actually eyes peeking out from under the stones by the road. Spear also sensed something was wrong, but the eyes quickly disappeared. This place was really too weird. Spear seemed to hear some movement. They quickly hid behind a huge rock to observe. An old ape man appeared in the distance. He was so thin that only skin and bones remained, carrying a wild boar on his back, looking around nervously, as if fleeing from something terrible. The old ape man wasn't looking where he was going, tripped over a stone. He grimaced in pain. His leg bone was already fractured and deformed. He looked up at the sky, seemingly sensing the approaching danger, quickly roared toward the distant boulders for help. His companions appeared at the cave entrance, but no one dared to go rescue him. A strong ape man crawled out from under the stones, beat his chest and howled to embolden himself. He ran toward the old ape man, but as soon as he touched the wild boar, he was grabbed and taken away by a mysterious creature. The ape man only dared to throw stones into the sky from the cave entrance, but it was all useless. To survive, the old ape man endured the pain and dragged the wild boar toward the cave entrance. But how could the mysterious monster let him go just like that? Spear couldn't bear to stand by and do nothing. He ran out quickly, picked up the old ape man and the wild boar, then rushed toward the cave. As soon as they safely returned to the cave, all the ape men actually hid themselves. Just then, a huge red figure appeared behind him.